What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk More Action Golf podcast. I'm your host, Luke Josepha, and today we have a special episode for you. On this episode, we talk with No Bunkers No Bogeys founder, creators, Matt and Jon. And when I tell you, this episode is really close and dear to my heart. And here's the reason why. When I started the Instagram account, Let's Talk More Action Golf, my main focus was around building a community. And when I tell you no bunkers, no bogeys, define the community that I was attempting to build. It is a community that is people-centered and is definitely an opportunity to include folks who are underserved, who have been marginalized in the world of golf. And because of that, I'm excited for you to hear this episode. The episode is a little long. It clocks in at about an hour and 15 minutes. But I want to encourage you to listen the whole time. In fact, I'm so confident that you're going to like this episode that if you find anything wrong with this episode, I want you to DM me at Let's Talk More Action Golf Podcast, and you tell me exactly where you heard the lie or something being said wrong, and I will send you a Lombardi putter 1985. That's how confident I am in this episode. I want to encourage you to listen the whole way through because Matt and Jon drop jewels out here. Grab your clubs, swing easy. Let's talk more action golf. Oh, one more thing. After you listen to the episode, send it to 5 of your friends who will send it each to 5 other people because everyone needs to hear this. All right, let's get back to the episode now. I see golf as a community because you get on the course, you're paired with someone, and if you're playing with someone for 4 hours, you're bound to get to know them. So I'd like to hear a little bit more. One, I think I'm interested in your friendship, unless you all are cousins or brothers. I'd like to know, how did the friendship come?
Yeah.
Matthew, you in San Antonio, Jon, you in Boston. How did that come about?
Matt, you can take this one.
Yeah, happy to take this one. Well, I haven't always been in San Antonio. So that is, I've been down here for about a decade with my wife and my family. We've been down here. But I grew up in Boston. So my parents are still in the Boston area. Mm-hmm. So Jon and I actually didn't meet until we were 12, but we went to the same New England prep school. And so when you say like friends, brothers, 6 years, highly competitive school, shared trauma forges bonds. And so I'd say that, after 6 years of that, 6 hours of homework a night, getting pushed around by our teachers, pushed to excel. And as much as I like to be tongue in cheek about it, I think we're both very grateful for the education we received and teachers who really cared about us and folks who want to see the best for us. It forges a friendship that even the kids that you may not have liked the most, you respected because everyone went through that same thing. And if you came out on the other side of it, right, you don't have to be my best friend, but I can respect you because I know the journey that you went on. And there's only 42 of us per class. So it's a really small world, but one that I think we're both pretty grateful for. And, it's led to some great friendships that, have lasted a lifetime. In fact, when COVID hit, one of the first things that I think we as a group turned to was each other. And we recreated basically the lunchroom conversation that has been ongoing for 22 years, 23 years over WhatsApp, right? And an anthill, it started with one big general group and then it turned into 75 sub chats and, it's covered every interest area possible. But those guys have also been some of the biggest supporters of the work we're doing.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why Matt and I get along so well is it's a combination of compassion and competitiveness. I think Matt knows how to push my buttons to help me reach my ceiling. And I think I feel the same way in terms of making sure that at the end of the day, we are excelling as humans, as business people, spiritually, in our relationships with families and friends. And we really do want to see the best for each other. And even in the midst of competitive school, it was like, hey, let's push each other so we can both benefit from it versus I'm going to crawl over you so that I'm the better student or the better athlete. And so that's remained. And he's really one of the only people on this earth outside of my wife that I can have those private, really vulnerable conversations with. So I really value his input.
I mean, that's hard to find.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super hard to find, right? Like in a world that, especially I think as Black men, like does not reward you for being open ever. Right. And in fact, like goes out of its way to punish you for it. It's been nice to do that. And I think, one of the things we talk about is community. Every community is different, but finding communities where you can be yourself, whether it's 4 hours on a golf course or, you're injured and you're recovering and you're talking to someone about, like, it's really hard to find those authentic communities of people who don't treat it like crabs in a barrel syndrome. Right. And I think that, we've tried to make our community authentic to our own friendship because that's been something that's hugely valuable. And I think whether it's people who've asked us to sponsor or folks who want to be involved, like the nice thing is we didn't take money from anyone. We're not beholden to any community or, funder. We're going to do the things that make it feel real.
So how were you all introduced into golf, and when did you decide that creating a golf community was the way to go?
I know for me, I started when I was a kid. My mom made it very clear to my dad that if I'm going to play golf, he's going to play golf. He's going to have a little companion, so she can, do something else during those hours. But I actually then, like most of us, played sports and kind of left the game. But I came back to it when I was living in New York City. I was an investment banker. And I just needed to get off of Manhattan Island and like get into some green space for a little bit. And like picking up a golf club was a perfect way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Jon?
So for me, I came to the game later. So for people who don't know, I'm a clinical psychologist. I went to school at University of Denver. And one of the first things that one of our professors did was he asked everybody in the class who played golf before. And so the golfers raised their hand and he said, I want to take everybody who's not played golf before out to play golf. And so we went to one of the beautiful public courses in downtown Denver and we were hacking around the course all day. And at the end, he brought us all together. He said, do you know why I did this? And some of us were like, oh yeah, we're going to be doctors. You want us to teach us how to play golf. And he's like, no, that's not it. What was he wanted us to get exposure to doing something that was challenging because we're going to be growing into our profession as psychologists and asking our patients and our clients to do challenging things all the time. So we as type A people, we're in graduate school, we're becoming doctors. We sometimes distance ourselves from things that are challenging or difficult. And he wanted to introduce us to golf as a way to get comfortable with doing something difficult.
So it looks like we may have lost Jon, but I want to follow up on something he said about, there we go.
He's back.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. My internet is unstable. But have us get in touch with something difficult and challenging so that we could, again, have exposure to us and always be in the state of learning and growing and experiencing challenge, but also finding ways to overcome it.
So here's something that I don't generally hear in the same sentence: clinical psychologists and type A personalities. In fact, I know for sure, I've never heard a psychologist refer to either themselves or anyone within their group as type A's. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like, to me, that's unheard of.
Really?
Yeah, if Matt had said type A as an investment banker, I would be like, yeah, that tracks.
Right.
But in, clinical psychologists, type A.
I'm going to overlook the insult implicit in all of that, but yeah.
No.
Take it, Jay. Take it.
There is no insult. There's no insult.
Yeah.
I think, I've been in the world of like mental health for a while and all that stuff. And mental health providers are not often pushing them. They're more subtle. maybe this is where I'm going with it, right? And type A's do not strike me as there are no subtleties in type A personalities. So I think that's why I want to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. I would say psychologists have the audacity to think that they can solve matters of the mind. And that when there's a high risk situation, somebody's struggling with psychosis, somebody's struggling with suicidality, situations that often cause our natural human reaction to be unnerved, uncomfortable, scared, that a psychologist or a psychologist in training would say, yeah, I want to be there. I want to be in the middle of all of that and try to lend support. And that's something that to pursue that as your end goal, you have to be maniacal in your approach in studying and practicing your clinical acumen and being able to sit in really uncomfortable positions. Because it's one thing to be in pain emotionally yourself. It's another thing to sit less than a foot and a half away from somebody, knowing that the world has bombarded them with so much pain and trauma, and you're trying desperately to convince them that there's a worthwhile future available for them, but they're not able to or capable or willing to listen because life has never shown them anything else. And so there is a type of ferocity and a type of type A that kind of comes with that pursuit because it's not for the faint of heart. But in terms of how we practice medicine, although it is at times feels like combat, it is gentler than some other professions.
Okay, I appreciate that. So thank you for that. You know, Matt was trying to throw me in the fray there, talking about insult. There was not that at all.
No, listen, I've gotten to observe, Luke. I've gotten to observe Jon for a long period of time. And what I would say is Jon's type A, like a lot of firefighters are type A.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to, I appreciate, and I've had the benefit of great parents and mentors, all of whom have said, make sure you take care of your mental health. And I've gotten the benefit of doing that throughout my life. And, I will say as someone who is surrounded by type A people who push themselves, but often push themselves to the detriment of their physical or mental health, often, tough is viewed often as pushing yourself in that way. I think tough can also be defined as being willing to wade into the wreck, even when you could have seen it coming, even when it's frustrating because you predicted it and you saw it coming, and still being willing to show up to try and help someone navigate their way back out because they didn't know enough, hadn't learned enough, hadn't been considerate enough, often of themselves and their own mental state, right? Like that's hard. Running a company is hard. Doing that work is hard. I think it's just a different application of the same type A. And I think to a certain extent, that balance of our personalities actually is helpful for our community, because I think we've been able to build on-ramps for people who may be coming out of the hyper-competitive investing or CEOing or whatever world that may be in, but also people who take that more firefighter approach or who like to think about communities as places to find their place of rest, or think about it as an opportunity to find that ability to engage other people in the unique aspects of themselves and explore their own personalities and their own lives with people who can be mirrors. And so I think it's a really cool thing that we've built a community that has started with our own diversity of viewpoint and background, but now expanded to, almost, 14,000 people who can also contribute their own mirror and personality to that. Right. And I think that that's the thing, to your point. Golf is about taking time to appreciate the humanity of the person next to you in a game that you can never beat. Right.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think those are very complex ideas, right? That to be able to do it, to form a community, to create a company, and everything complex. If you have to create a pitch to get people in it, it needs to be simple. So talk to me about the origin of you all coming together, really good bond, and it's clear, it's evident that you are both well centered in who you are right now. and then creating something that a lot of time there's a lot of fragility in golf, in creating that community.
Well, I mean, if we're going to be honest, it started because we failed to start another business. Like, we've been talking for a long time about this thing that we wanted to do, and we tried to get this other thing together, get it launched. It was like performance management for promising, athletes who want to go pro, and sharing some of like the financial and performance things that we did. And we failed. And we sat back and we said, like, what is the thing that we actually care about? And at least for me, it was, how do we build a community that has a center point of focus that can be attractive to join, but isn't about beating the crap out of the person next to you, but instead like going on an endless journey? Like, the beauty of golf is it is an endless journey. You never have to stop playing in your lifetime, and it ever evolves and changes. So you can be as competitive as you want to be. And yeah, you can play your buddies, you can take their money, you can do whatever, but like the game is still an ultimate journey against yourself. So because you're playing yourself, there's this room to both have this wonderfully engaging activity, but also put yourself in a moment where you get to expose yourself to someone else and like talk and listen and celebrate moments of joy and like the lip outs and everything else. But like, in so many respects, it also prompts you to be able to have those hard conversations about what's going on with you in your life, because you can't hide it from a playing partner over 4 hours.
Yeah.
Especially if they know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think part of it too started with this idea that, Matt really came up with. And Matt and I are people who like challenges. We like to do things because it's there and because it's staring at our face. Matt said, like, I believe the game is for anybody and everybody, and we believe we can make it so. And like, that kind of sparked this, I'd say, second iteration of what we were doing, or more momentum and more enthusiasm, more energy about what if we take this conversation to a bigger platform and a bigger scale, and what if we're the people who are part of solving this equation to be able to improve the game? Because again, there's a lot of intensity. Don't get it twisted. Like, Matt and I are killers, but with that killer mentality also comes with some humility. As much as we may want to take the game-winning shot, we are also comfortable passing it off to people who can take that game-winning shot too. And I think our ability to be the glue that's going to help a fraction or a portion or a segment of the golf community come together more easily and be able to hold that bond together in a stronger way is highly attractive to us. And the great people we've met in the industry already is proof that we need to have more of these conversations, because I've been playing golf for 10 years and I never come across a lot of these people. And I joke with Matt, every time I go to the golf course and I open my mouth, I make a new friend, because you have these conversations and these interactions, and they're so beautiful. And now we can leverage technology to reduce friction and having these great connections. So we basically started with this idea of, we want you to connect with three things. We want you to connect with yourself, we want you to connect with nature, and we want you to connect with other people. Because in our modern life, in this tube that we live in, the black mirror of our cell phone and our computer, we are encouraged to disconnect from nature and to tune into streaming. We are encouraged to disconnect from ourselves and worry about other people. And also, we are encouraged to worry about other people in a comparison standpoint as opposed to a compassionate standpoint. And we really want to twist and break those narratives and have people really get back to a more human connection, humanistic standpoint.
So it sounds like to me, you all saw that there is a gap, right? And so you're creating an opportunity for people to connect with nature, to connect with themselves, to be vulnerable, as you said it. But what was the question that you were asking, like the pain point that you all noticed? Or at least if you're using the glue to bond, what was the gap that you all first identified in the world of golf that you thought, okay, you know what? No Bunkers, No Bogeys can definitely fill that void.
Simply for me, I would always joke with Matt. I would see another person of color on the golf course. They'd be a couple of holes ahead of me, or they'd be putting their bag in the car, and I'd sprint. I'd be like, I got to see that person before I leave, because if I'm local, I want to connect with them. And I may or may not have anything in common, but it's like seeing a unicorn in public in certain places where I golfed. So I wanted to at least make eye contact and have them acknowledge, like, I see you, I experience what you experience possibly, and I at least acknowledge your humanness in the space where your humanness may not be acknowledged. And so I always was like, I see these black people and people of color on the course, but being on the course and trying to connect with them is so awkward and challenging because of the pace of play, and you're already in a group. So it's not really easy to do. And so, Matt, if you want to speak more to that, like, that was part of my reason for doing it.
I think for me, I travel 270 days out of the year. Jon and I were just looking at calendars, right? And like every time I show him my calendar, he kind of shudders a little bit. But I think when you live as isolated a life as I do, because as much as I'm around other people, I run a company, I have a great family life, but like I am also on the road a lot. That means I'm like headphones in through airports, in cars. I was like reflecting the other day, like how many Black Ubers have I sat in going into nameless, faceless city X to go to nameless, faceless hotel Y, to sit in nameless, faceless boardroom Z, to leave and do it all over again and maybe do it 5 times in a week. You know what I mean? And that wheel, we define ourselves by our busyness. We define ourselves and our value by that, by the money we generate, by the impact we have. And like I work in education and I love that impact. I love the fact that my hours get to translate into better lives for kids. But there's a mental health thing that is real in all of that. And golf is one of the few times it's like the thing you can bring with you that can help you break that. And I think for a lot of us, whether we're traveling a lot or we're just busy, if we don't intentionally try to break it, it's hard. I think for millennials and younger, and I think for men in particular of all ages, there is a lack of community and a loneliness that is playing itself out in like some fairly ugly ways. I mean, we don't need to look at anything more than the fact that the male suicide rate is like, it's hard to believe we still have people, right? The suicide rate amongst younger generations, like there is a lack of connection. And the only real connection that I think you can find that solves that is having people around you. And if using golf as a forcing function to give you a point of connection to yourself, to give yourself a healthy area of competition, because we are competitive people, like it's an outlet for that, but it's also an outlet to connect and share or feel connection to other people. If we don't start to get serious about the challenge that people are facing, and golf is such a wonderful way to do that, we're losing generations of people, and we're losing what makes us great as humans down a rabbit hole that, like, it's just so easy. Like the dopamine addiction of falling down that road, it's just too easy.
I appreciate that, because I think, as you said, like I look at the data in terms of suicide by young adolescent, it just keep rising and rising overall. And I think, when I see your little bits, your Instagram, you talk about being vulnerable, right? You talk about connecting with people in a way that's really vulnerable. But I don't know, especially me as a Black man, I get the same excitement that Jon get when I see another person of color on the course. And I see them more often now. I mean, Houston, I see them definitely more often. But someone like me, people would define me as charismatic. I don't have an issue to kind of like, hey, embrace another person quickly. But how does the community you're building break down walls where folks aren't afraid of each other? Right? Because you can see someone on the course, but your intention, their intentions, the world outside doesn't lend itself for me to just say, hey, Matt, bro, it's good to see you on the course, man. What's going on? Because if I see you out in the street, we're all trying to get bread. We're all trying to do different things. Like, right. What are you all utilizing to create, to lubricate, to remove the friction, to make that connection?
I think at one point we thought online community would be enough. It's not. We are setting up kind of outposts for what we do for in-person events. I think that part of it too is whether, I was just down in Georgia for an event. Jon and I have been to Phoenix for an event. We're throwing another one. Actually sold our first sold out event this weekend in Boston. Jon's hosting. It's giving people the test and see. Come and check it out. Come to an event. Come meet with folks or come hang out in our community. And I think that one of the things that has helped here is we aren't dependent on the charisma of an individual to run across a parking lot. Like, Jay, you'll do it. Luke, you'll do it. I'll do it. But some people like to commune face-to-face and some people like to commune shoulder-to-shoulder. By also giving people golf as a way, whether it's we're getting beginners together and you can be with other people who are beginners, or we're getting a group together and you're new to the area. I remember when we did our thing in Phoenix, one of the guys who showed up was like, hey, I just moved here from like the DC area. Sorry, the Georgia area. I just wanted to like see if there's other people around, and I figured this would be a safe space to do it. Because we're able to offer that shoulder to shoulder thing, right, where you're doing something together and you kind of can then look over your shoulder and have that conversation, it gives people a lot of different entry points to feel comfortable. And for some people, they might comment a million times on Instagram. They might never comment and watch a lot of stuff. But in either case, we're hoping that it will compel them to get there. And the more we can set up those outposts, the more we can set up those opportunities for that shoulder-to-shoulder interaction, it will be supportive of those who may be more reticent to just jump in with 2 feet.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off that, if I can, a lot of golf groups and a lot of just golf in general prioritizes skill. It prioritizes fashion. It prioritizes power, precision. We prioritize people playing golf, however you play golf. And one of the things that I love about therapy is a sacred human experience. We close the door, we sit or stand close to each other, and we just talk. We talk privately, and we talk with confidentiality. And so for us, we are approaching golf as an opportunity to have, as corny as it sounds, and corny because we live in 2024, but not corny because it's corny, to have an authentic human moment for 2 to 4 hours with yourself or with somebody else. And we try to attract people who are committed to our mission of when you're playing with somebody, get to know them, ask them questions, cheer them on, be their biggest cheerleader, because that's the goal. People aren't coming to our group because they want to play golf. People are coming to our group, like Matt said, because they're looking for that human experience. Because in a digital world, it gets harder and harder to have those sacred, primal human moments where 2 people will, that when I go play golf with people, my cheeks will hurt so much because I'm laughing or because I just feel so alive when I play with certain people. We want people to have those moments, and they even forget what they shot, or they forget about how they went into the water 5 times on the first tee. Who cares? The thing is, you're playing golf on a weekday, you're not at work, or you're playing golf on the weekend, and your body and your mind and the weather and everything else is so aligned that you can have this beautiful moment with people you know or people you just met. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Because we're not going to have a lifetime full of those moments. We only get a few. And if we can have a few, if Matt and I can facilitate and collaborate with setting up the stage so that people can have some of those beautiful moments in their lives that they remember for a week or for the rest of their lives, like, that's awesome.
I like that. So, Matt, it looks like you were about to add more. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You also play better.
Yeah, you do play better.
That's the hilarious part, right? Like, you actually end up playing better because you aren't viewing it as a chance to beat yourself up. You view it as a chance to, like, enjoy the game. And, like, any single sports psychologist will tell you that when you can free your mind up from the tension and allow your body to act naturally and, like, just, everything we've all seen those golf memes, like, this is what golf does to my brain, right? It's like noisy, noisy, noisy. It's like listening to, like, the adult from Charlie Brown, and all of a sudden it goes to quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, it's a way to quiet yourself down.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. I want to pivot to the hard part, because clearly you all have chemistry, you have the mission. I want to pivot to the back office part, right? Because 14,000 members strong, different cities. That's not something that just happens over a phone call. It requires real work, bare knuckle real work. And I'd like to hear, how did, from two members, which I'm assuming Jon and Matt, you all were the first members, to getting you all to your first 100 members. Like, what was that like? What were the rewarding parts? And it doesn't have to be negative, right? But the part where you all were behind closed doors, like, yo, can we really do this?
Yeah. I'd say for me, I don't feel comfortable putting myself on Front Street like that. I'm a fairly private guy. I live in a bubble, and I kind of do my own thing with my small knit community. So initially, when we were posting either on our platform or on Instagram, we could sort of be anonymous, right? We could sort of kind of be people who were doing this thing, but it wasn't popular and it wasn't big. So it was just whatever. It could fail, right? And it still could. But as it got bigger and bigger, and as Matt and I started to gain notoriety on Instagram or in public, and people started coming up to us and recognizing us when we were out, that was uncomfortable for me. That was something that I had to come to terms with, and I'm still coming to terms with it, trying to make sense of it, because, again, I love my privacy. I love the fact that I can go anywhere and do anything. But now thinking about, not only do we have a company brand, but I also have a personal brand. And I want it to be authentic so I don't have to switch, but I also want to have some privacy. So I'll talk about being a dad, but I'm not going to post pictures of my son on the company website, because I feel like that's a little too far. So I know for me, that was something, Matt, I don't know what you stand on it.
I think I had two distinct advantages on Jon on this one. I think one, I've been in tech and doing startups for a long time. So I think some of the back office and like the hard stuff, like setting up the bank account, dealing with the like filing, we were able to get through some of that quickly, and not without disagreement. Like, anyone who tells you starting a business doesn't start with disagreement. And it's not easier because you know each other well. In fact, because we know each other well, we know exactly when one of us is not putting in the 100%. And we both have hard jobs, like full-time hard jobs, and like not 40-hour-a-week jobs, but 100-hour-a-week jobs plus families. So like, you have to like find that balance and find your rhythm. Like, I mean, one of our biggest fights is like, who's posting, right? We finally had to like learn to start texting each other and figure it out. And we got more skilled at it, right? Like, I remember when it would take us an hour and a half to build a Canva thing that would take us literally 3 minutes right now, because we built a repository, we've learned, we've upskilled and everything else. And that's part of that journey. So if you're going to go on this journey, like, definitely expect there to be a learning curve, and you do it with a partner in particular. It's about like a mixture of accountability and also understanding. I would say like the other advantage I had was, I've been leading companies for a while now, and, my current company is 60 full-time people plus 500 contract. Like, you're used to people looking to you and seeing you and like having to be on a bit of a stage. Like, every time I go travel somewhere, I've got to meet with my team, and it's dinner with the CEO of the company, right? So like, there's a aspect to that you get used to. And I think there's a loneliness that comes with that, because even in our own community, because we're leading it, we're trying to be authentic with it, there is a level that like you can always approach, but it is being built for the folks to experience. And so how you build that with authenticity, but also keep enough reserve to like honestly judge your performance with it, is a thing that you just have to get used to and work through. So I'd say like, it's just hard. There's some psychological barriers you got to jump over, and you have to understand that like, you are always on a stage when you start it. And the only way you can survive it is to make sure that that stage is reflective of who you are authentically. Because there's an act, people figure it out. They figure it out almost immediately.
I would also just piggyback off that. I would say our families have been great. Matt has had conversations with my partner about what we're doing so that she can fully understand and appreciate what steps we're taking. What does this mean? What does that mean? Just in terms of the inner workings. Like, she works in business too, so she has that vocabulary. But I think there's a trust that my family has and Matt's family has and the families have together of, we trust our partners are going to put in the work and do what's in the best interest for the business and for our families. And we don't do things that would be in the best interest of our family, but counterproductive, or best interest of the business, but counterproductive for our families. And so I think those family values really do help orient us to keep us authentic, keep us efficient, and make sure that we have the right priorities.
I think it's worth also noting, like, one of the things I think has been pretty important for us is our followership is 30+% female, right? And like, I think in many golf communities, women in particular are prized either for how they look on the golf course, right? Or it's like some sort of tokenish type of thing. And I think for us, as we look at it, we really want a community where, whether you are what the golf community like has always prized, or you are female or LGBTQ plus or a minority, that like this feels like a welcome place for you in a game that has often not felt welcome to you. So I think because of that, it's really important for Jon and I that like the standard never slips, because the moment it slips, you will break that trust. And I think if there's one thing that we've learned, it's like you can break the trust that took you years to mint in an instant. Right.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah. So who came up with the name No Bunkers, No Bogeys?
That wasn't me.
That was my fault. That was my fault.
No, it was a good call, dude.
That's like, could you have picked a shorter name? But yeah, we were thinking about what would represent what we want to accomplish. And I think the name No Bunkers, No Bogeys represents it in two ways. First being, you don't want any impediments. You don't want any obstacles. So we're taking out the bunkers and the bogeys to you meeting your future golf friends through this platform. And then it's also like, don't be a bunker or a bogey, man. Don't be a bummer. Be a good person. Invest in people. So using it in that way too. But this idea that like, we're not trying to be perfect, but we're trying to reduce that friction of getting you to where you want to be. We're taking our members on a journey. We're not dictating what that journey is for them, but we will promise them that that journey will involve a lot of human connection, a lot of human interaction, and the beautiful side of the game of golf.
So talk to us a little bit about the logistic of organizing an event where neither of you live.
Fortunately, because I travel so much, I have a lot of frequent flyer miles. And so I can kind of be where I need to be when I need to be. Listen, I think it comes down to this. We've been fortunate to build trust with some of our members who want to be a part of this, who believe in the mission, and really charter through activity with them where they're willing to host, we're there to support. And listen, if No Bunkers, No Bogeys is really going to last for a long period of time, it can't actually run through Jon and I. Mm-hmm. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of communities make, and one of the mistakes a lot of leaders make, regardless of organization size, is thinking that it's all about them, right? It's not actually about Jon and I. Jon and I were the precipitators of what we hope is a movement. And that movement needs to be about the movement, not about the founders of the movement. I think we'll both look back and say, like, No Bunkers, No Bogeys can evolve into things that like we couldn't have even imagined, right? But we got to give people ownership in the journey to really make it what we want it to be, because a community has to be defined by its values, but also by its active participation. And so I think for us, we look at it and we say, we built some tools, right? Like how to negotiate with the golf course, how to, like, what are the things you need to look for? What does signage look like? How do you get signups and do those? And we've built that infrastructure to help support others to do it. But on our hope, we hope there's an NBNB outpost everywhere. I'd love to see one in like Sweden in a year, or South Africa, or Kenya, or, Taiwan, or Chile, right? Like, the goal is, whether you're in, Marietta, Georgia, or Omaha, Nebraska, or Santiago, Chile, that, like, there is a standard that we have set, which is like around community and interaction, where people can really enjoy that opportunity to use a game that is beautiful and accessible to enjoy themselves and, like, meet people and interact and build their own life that sits outside of a small box that sits in their hand.
Yeah.
So one of your...
Can I piggyback off that real quick?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah.
And one of the things that Matt taught me from his experiences with startups and investing is the process of a startup is you birth something, right? And then you show it to the world, and then the world's going to make of it what the world or the community wants to make of it. So being flexible to, we thought No Bunk was going to be one thing, and then you introduce it into the world, and the world tells you, this is great, but we really need it to be this thing. And being flexible with that, as long as it still aligns with our values and our missions of being human-centered. So I think even in the platform's been around for about almost a little more than a year, probably 16, 18 months. We've noticed the ways in which the community members, whether they're on Instagram or on our platform, have needed us to change or have wanted us to change. And we've been receptive to those changes when it seems like it's best fits the needs of our community members, but also further aligns with our values and our mission.
One of the, and I don't know if this is definitely not your mission, but one of the values is inclusivity, right? So on your website, inclusive community, so you can focus on your game, right? But inclusivity, or at least in my opinion, if not meant correctly, can become the exact thing that you want it not to be. What are some guardrails that you all are putting in place so No Bunkers, No Bogeys can continue to be inclusive and not make folks feel like it's an exclusive community that leaves them out?
I think, we're seeing this in so many areas of life right now, whether it's education or politics or others, like this weaponization of this idea of inclusivity, that if it's inclusive to all, it's exclusive to me. I think that there is, if we really boil it down, right, it's pretty simple. Golf is not owned by anybody. Anyone should feel like they can walk and play the game. And there's going to be all sorts of golf communities. And I'm not saying that Cyprus needs to suddenly become a public course and allow anyone in the door, right? Like, but 80% of golf is played on municipal courses. Like, we hold up Augusta and others as these like exclusive places, and they are. And whether I agree with it or not, it is not the majority of golf. I think for Jon and I, our focus is for the majority of golfers in the majority of places, how do we help them build communities where, like, they're comfortable? I'll give you a perfect example. We did our event in Phoenix, and we had a contest winner who came out, and she said, I don't know, I would have been comfortable just walking into a scramble with a random group of people, but, like, I know the values and I was willing to give it a chance. And even though I played with two guys who were actually scratch, I mean, these dudes were sticks. I mean, they could really, really move the ball. She felt like a valued member of that scramble team, having a good time. And it didn't matter that, she was a 20+ handicap. That's what we mean by inclusive. That, like, you can play the game and you can play your game. You can play from your tees. You can play challenge yourself. But what you do for you doesn't take away from what someone else wants to do from them. And you are still two humans who are sitting there. And so whether I play from 6,000 yards and I'm struggling at my 7-iron 120, or you're playing from 7,500 yards in the tip and you can put the ball 335 out there, we both can play the same game and enjoy it. It's about like having an open mind to the person sitting next to you, being someone that you're willing to accept and be a human. And so when we say inclusive, that's what we mean. Now, we'll be exclusive to certain things. We're not going to be shaming people. We're not going to be telling them that they can't, come and play, right? Like if you could get through kindergarten, you can get through the inclusivity rules we have here. You don't make fun of people for how they look, how they act, how they talk. You talk and act towards people in the way that you hope to be treated. You learn how to share the space, right? And you're able to be a good community and a keeper of the grounds in the area, right? Like you're not ruining your golf course, you're not throwing trash on the ground. Beyond that, man, just be yourself. But I think people overthink this idea when we were taught this in kindergarten.
Yeah. So I think, and I don't know if that's intentional, but I get from what I'm seeing here, you guys make the perfect marriage, right? When you talk about people being themselves, and now I see the clinical psychologist part of creating space, right? And I think I appreciate, Jon, you have an uncomfortable bit you do on Instagram, uncomfortable conversations. Is that what it? I don't want to. Yeah. Uncomfortable places. And I remember the first time I see it, you were in the closet, right? The second time you were literally upside down on the stairs as if you're like you were on your way down, like someone who's falling down in the comfortable places.
Horrible.
Right?
Never doing that again.
So where did that come from?
Well, so Matt and I, to run a business, we need to have uncomfortable conversations. And whether it's my marriage, whether it's parenting, whether it's as a therapist, whether it's as a co-founder, my day is full of uncomfortable conversations, but I also see the growth that comes from them. Matt and I are not best friends because we just lucked out and became best friends. We are best friends because we've gone through a lot of stuff together. And we've had tough conversations. And so getting people to understand the imagery of me upside down or me in the closet, or I'm trying to think of the third one that I did. Under the table. Yeah. It gets people to wonder what I'm doing and it pulls them in. And then you get this nourishment with the message that comes through it. And so it's ridiculous to sit under a table. It's ridiculous to lay on steps upside down. It's ridiculous to be in the closet like that. But if it's going to get somebody to watch the video, to be able to get just a little drop of support to get through a tough day, like if Matt was recounting his days and his weeks that he has, if he or somebody like him can get a little bit of emotional nourishment from watching a 7-second video on YouTube that we can produce and still supports our brand, but also helps people get through a Monday, a Tuesday, a rough Wednesday, being away from their family, being away from their kids or their fur baby on a business trip, boom, I'm all for it. But we as a society, and we as, whether you're a couple, a business partner, a parent, coworker, friends, we need to get more comfortable about having uncomfortable conversations. If I ask Matt how he's doing, he shouldn't feel like he just needs to say, okay, or I'm good, to protect my emotions. He should know that the rent that I pay to be his best friend is that when he is feeling crappy, then I'm going to be able to tolerate that, and I'm ready to sit with him and wade through that water with him. And so I want to be comfortable all the time. I'm not David Goggins, for sure. I ain't there. But
watch out, choose your hard.
Yeah, no, I ain't there yet. But we can start injecting more uncomfortable conversations throughout our day to help improve all aspects of our lives.
I'm going to add something to that too, right? Which is, what in our community, I think part of what we want to do is like show up as who you are. We think it's important that people have real conversations about what's going on. We did a conversation with Matt Bloss, who, a lot of people had seen on TXG before they became part of Club Champion. I think if you were watching like YouTube golf during COVID, like he was the cool lefty dude who could play righty like better than you could, and play his offhand better than you could drive the ball 350, and like was awesome, but like also had these serious conversations about mental health. That is who he is. He just was who he was on it. Like One of the reasons, I was self-conscious about the fact that like I will talk golf with anybody. I'll actually talk any sport with anybody for as long as you'll let me talk to you. And at first I was like, I get in, I do my like 30-second clips, like this is what's going on in the game. I'm excited about this. At first I was pretty self-conscious about it because I was worried people would be like, oh my God, this dude's like nerding out on the sport. I don't really care. But then I realized if I can't go into this community and like just be myself, what message am I sending? And like, if you ask John or anyone else who knows me, like me nerding out on things that I find interesting is like just kind of, John talked about the rent of dealing with me. Like that's part of the rent having to deal with me. That's just part of life. But you can just show up as you are and you can be who you are. And that's okay. And I think that we're building a diverse enough community that you're going to look around and find some of your people in it.
I want to challenge that thought a little bit. Show up as you are in the world of golf, right? Because the world of golf is very structured, right? You have to dress in a certain way. You have to do things in a certain way. What challenges do you all think you are about to face in order to push against that, right? Because what you're saying here is not just showing up as you are based on dressing, but also who you are as a person, walking into a sport that up until now still requires a certain level of dress code.
Decorum.
Right? Yeah. Like what do you all foresee some of the challenges to be to like push against that?
I have a question for you. What's like the most popular game in America right now? Like the most popular fad game in America?
I think it's pickleball, isn't it?
Yeah,
isn't it?
Pickleball. Have you seen like people playing pickleball? They're in cutoffs, they're in shorts, they're in tank tops. All derivative from tennis, right? What was the most like stuffed shirt sport 50 years ago? It was tennis, right? You have to be in a collar. You have to be in this. You've seen a game that has globalized and diversified in part, even at Wimbledon. Like there's a little bit of color, and I'll leave that as interpret that comment as you wish. But they have realized that tennis can still be played and there can still be honor in the game and there can still be beauty and sport and sportsmanship and like a collegial atmosphere, despite the fact that we've dropped a lot of the barriers that were really meant to keep people out versus play the game. Golf, I play in Texas all the time. It's 105 degrees outside. Are you really telling me in a game that's being played at 105 degrees that there isn't room for athletic gear, breathable fabrics, and not dying of heat stroke in some like tight cotton polo tucked in?
Nike pants.
Yeah, there is. But we use those rules as a way to keep people out. You can have people be neat and show up in a t-shirt. You can have people look sloppy in a polo. But instead of trying to use the rules of golf to keep people out, why don't we focus on the behavioral rules of golf? You respect people, you let them hit in peace, you clean up after yourself, you care for the course, like you're a cordial human who's there. That is what makes golf a pleasant game to play. And by the way, the number of times we've seen the golf person on YouTube in a fist fight with some other golf person in a polo, let's not pretend like it's actually stopping the problem. Let's be real. It's being used to gatekeep, right? It's a gatekeep based on wealth. It's a gatekeep based on who are our comfortable people. When the reality is someone with tattoos can still stripe at 350 and be a great golfer and be a wonderful human and a great time to spend time with, even if that's not who you think should be on a golf course. Yeah. That is a you problem. That's not a them problem.
Yeah, and it makes me think that decorum goes both ways, right? You have to have decorum when you show up as a guest to the course, but also the course needs to show you decorum as a guest to the course. And Matt and I talked to Allie Putnam, who started A Putnam, the female clothing brand. And one of the things that inspired her is like, when I want to go play golf, I had to go change my clothes out of my work clothes to fit the criteria to play on the course, which was a waste of time and was a barrier to me playing. And so she wanted to develop clothes that she could wear to work, and that would also, in other places, that would also fit some of the traditional clothing standards for a golf course. So she was breaking some of the friction that a lot of women have, where women's fashion is, I'll say, more expansive than men's fashion. And so you can wear a lot of appropriate stuff, quote unquote, appropriate. And I apologize because it makes it sound like I'm the person who's dictating what's appropriate for somebody to wear, but things that people see as fashionable and things that people see as appropriate to wear to work, to a birthday party, to a restaurant, that would not still fit in that golf space. And so having to go home and change or hop out of your car and go change in a locker room that may not exist at a golf club because they don't have a women's locker room is a barrier to entry. And so how can we just get more people on the course? Like Matt and I, we did a podcast where we're like, there could have been a better golfer than Tiger Woods, but maybe that didn't happen because that person, he or she or they, weren't allowed to play golf. Yeah. Like how much did we suffer because Tiger Woods didn't have competition during his run, or that other person who could have been the next prodigy wasn't allowed to get on the course because they had dreadlocks, because they couldn't afford golf clothes, because the golf course didn't like the cut of their jib or whatever it was. We miss out, and that person misses out too.
I went to go play at a country club here in San Antonio, and I won't mention which one, but like I show up and I have golf clubs. I'm in a polo. My shirt's tucked in. Walk to the starter, and the first thing I hear is, sir, this is not a public course. Well, no shit. Like, I'm here to play with a guest. And then I walk up, and the manager comes out, and he's like, sir, are you here to play with a guest? I mean, this is not a public course. And I'm like, again, for the second time, I'll answer this question, right? And I was like, I'm clearly dressed to play golf. There are other guests walking around who you're not saying anything to. It's a gatekeeping function. And let me remind people of something. In 2019, golf was nearly dead. We were talking about like turning public courses into housing developments, shutting down public courses. Not enough people were playing. If we'd like to avoid that in the future, we should be making it as easy and welcoming and accessible for it. And like my challenge to the golf community, whether you are a OEM manufacturer of clubs, or you run private or public courses, or you are a municipality who's running it, or you're just someone who's inviting someone to a golf course or sit on the board of your country club. Gen Z millennials, like the idea that someone's writing a $70K check to join your equity club, like that is a dying thing. Most country clubs now are actually owned by Arcus and others. Entry fees are now $2,000 for initiation, and like they're much more reasonable. You got to make the game accessible into something that people want to play. And if that means that we're being more sensible about things like the clothing that people wear, not getting down this weird psychosexual pathway of if a woman's not wearing Bermuda shorts, she's, tempting the men on a golf course. Like that stuff's crazy. People are people. Let's make it welcoming for them. Let's make rules that make it fun, easy, and accessible. Because if you want the game to be around for the next 50 years, it's got to become something that people are willing to play, spend time on, get to. And it's got to feel like you don't have to buy a whole new wardrobe and a whole new set of things and adopt a new persona just to be able to walk on a golf course.
What are some interesting things that you've learned since you started this journey? I mean, we talk about inclusivity, we talk about decorum, we talk about the values of no bunkers, no bogeys, but what are some interesting things that you all did not expect at all for it to be an issue at all?
I'll say this. Most people just want to have a good time. Most people just want to like meet friends and have a good time. They're not looking to gatekeep. They don't build their status around their score or golf. You can be the best golfer in the world. And like some of the greatest golfers I know are happy to pay with a hack as much as they're happy to play with someone else who can challenge them. Like they just love the game. They just want to be out and playing it. And they want to use it as an opportunity to like connect.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Matt. I think one of the other things is the breadth of golf for me. So we have fling golf, we have long drive, we have speed golf, the putt-putts and mini golf becoming more popular, top golf. So when I entered the sport, I don't know if those things existed, but my awareness of them was not there. But now that we are trying to build this golf community, we want to make it inclusive of all forms of golf. So we have great friends that are world long drive champions. We have great friends that are fling golf champions. We want to make sure that if you want to play golf on a golf course, make sure you check out the various ways that may fit your body, your interests, and your wallet in terms of how to play golf. And so I think that that's been really beautiful. But the weirdest thing, which I guess shouldn't have been weird, but because we started this business, was just how much people connected to the mission. We're not scratch golfers. You're not going to see videos of us just placing the ball wherever we want to place it. We are your, I guess, average golfers. And so the fact that people are taking an interest not only in what we're building, but also like we want to see Matt and Jonathan play golf, like that was surprising to me, because when I look on Instagram and I see what's popular, it's people who are bombing at 350 and are, able to hit in the 70s. And that's not us.
Although I think there is a community for the folks who aren't.
Right.
The folks,
because most of us aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can include those who are too.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is, like, I love that. And I love the idea to be able to learn from folks or have them help open the game. And I think what's so cool is those people who really love golf, they get such a buzz out of introducing someone new to the game, right? They love seeing someone else love the thing that they love. And I think there's such a great world for that. And like, if there's the weirdest thing about it, it's like, it's such a small percentage of people who like to gatekeep and prevent others from playing. It's so small that actually it should be able to be knocked down, right? There's great manufacturers who are independent, and we talked to many of them. Jon mentioned A Putnam or A Golf or Sierra Madre, right? Buena Gente. Like, there are so many great folks that we spend time with. Swing Chick Golf, Shonda, who runs Swing Chick, she is part of our No Bunkers, No Bogeys Atlanta outpost as well, right? And helping us organize events, but also bringing like progressive women's fashion into the game. So there are so many people who are out there who want to do it, who want to make the game accessible, like manufacturers are starting to get smart about helping people who have body mobility issues have access to tools. One of our biggest supporters, Ryan Jackson, she's an adaptive golf champion. It's awesome to see that. And so I look at it and I say, there's this incredible community that is the majority of people who play golf, who just want people to enjoy playing golf. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in is it Pebble Beach? Is it Cypress? Is it Augusta? Is it Bethpage Black and you're shooting in the 60s? The number of people who ever break 80 in golf is like a very small percentage. Break 70, it's like going from like high school to college to the pros, right? But if you can competently break 100, 90, 80, whatever your goal is, and confidently play the game and enjoy it, seems like a tree falling in the forest without anyone around to hear. And I think sometimes what we have to do as a community is look past those gatekeepers and say, hey, listen, there's too many of us to keep us out. You want this game to exist? We're here and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Let's talk about your platform. So on the NBNB Golf Club, right, you offer exclusive member benefits. The price of membership, I would consider it, and there are folks who may or may not be able to afford it right away, but I see that as like a reasonable, right? It's what, $50 a year. You get discounts, right? And a number of retails that you've all mentioned here. What else? Like, how do you communicate with that community on your platform?
Sure. So we have the exclusive discounts. We also have exclusive content. So content that's generated around golf news, content that's generated around some of the brands that we work with as well. So getting people updated on exclusive drops, the going-ons of PGA Tour stores and PGA show events that may involve the people that we work with, keeping people up to date on HBCU golf, and also the events. So if we have an event, you would get a reduced rate to attend the event versus our non-members. So a great example would be our Boston event in August. Our no-bunk members pay $30 for the event. The non-members pay $50 for the event. And then when we have bigger events and we have members and non-members, the members will get additional raffle points or maybe an exclusive gift to come to the event, whereas the non-members may get a gift, but it will be a different size or a different items than the members.
I really appreciate that. Go ahead, Matt. You were about to add more.
Oh, I was going to say, it's also just a place for us to interact directly, right? Like Instagram, we try to get to every single DM that we can. You got two of us who are kind of powering through, and we do get to most of them. But I think it's a great chance to see like real user-generated content, right? Opportunities to connect with other people who are playing. And I think we've seen some really good and authentic stories come out of that, and we've appreciated that. We also engaged recently with a gentleman named Patrick, who's an awesome content writer who's been taught, and a scratch golfer who's been sharing a lot about the different aspects of the game, what it means to play in tournaments, what are some of these like great courses that you're seeing that he's had a chance to play in competition, like just giving folks some like different looks at what the game can be and opportunities to ask questions and learn more. And I think we see as many new golfers as experienced golfers who are there, and it's cool to see those barriers being broken, questions being answered, and opportunities for people to connect in ways that they haven't. And like, I think my biggest thing is seeing people be supportive of different forms of golf, like telling people, yo, go play 6 holes, go play 3, do whatever it is that makes sense for you. And I think sometimes we always are looking for permission to do things. And sometimes the community can be great for that.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that, we have a true diverse group of folks. So we have, Matt mentioned Ryan Jackson, adaptive golfer. We have a former professional and national team soccer player. We have somebody who is working their way on the tour. We have people in finance. We have teachers. We have lawyers. We have, again, not scratch, which is most of us. So, and also just from the different locations around the United States. And I think we got a couple in Canada as well. So one of the cool things for me was, when we had the contest in New York, the winner of the contest was also a psychologist. And we joked about like how often or how rarely you meet somebody and you hear them say that they're a psychologist too. So then we had this conversation of what it was like as she's in graduate school and, I'm finished. So these points of contact, not only about the golf, but you can also be in similar industries, which then can lead to networking outside of golf and opportunities when you relocate. So we had somebody recently relocate to Chicago from California who helped us build the platform. And so now she has a resource and a community in the Illinois area that she can connect with.
And big shout out to Club Champion on that one. Like, I think it was really cool getting to see our contest winner who was not a scratch golfer. Women are often not, told to go get fit. And it was really cool to see her go through that experience. And, we'll drop more on that experience in the coming days. But like, they're an example of a traditional manufacturer or company saying like, hey, this game can be used for everyone. And John and I were there for the fitting. Like the two fitters, Matt and Patrick, I mean, they were awesome. Right. And made people feel really comfortable and like go through that experience. And that's something that's really intimidating for a lot of folks.
So you all have the platform and your membership is growing, right? So you're holding events, because every time I pay attention, it seems like, I think 6 months ago, you were just getting things going in New York. Now you in Georgia, you in other places. So what should we expect? Well, maybe even before that, folks who are listening right now, right, who wants to become part of this community, definitely go on the website and join. And what should they be expecting in the next 3 to 5 years from No Bunkers?
Well, I'm gonna let Matt.
No, Jed, you take it first, man.
So I think Matt and I both have ideas on how to revolutionize golf events. Mainly, we won't communicate them now just so that people don't front run these ideas, but really being able to think about how can you make a human-centric golf event? Golf events have typically been surrounded by or based upon score, place, handicap, beginner, intermediate, advanced, scratch golfer, all these different metrics that bring people together and variables about the engagement, the community, the event. we have some ideas about how to get people together that will leverage golf, but it won't be a skill-based event and will be more of a community event. And so that's something that we're interested in the future. Matt mentioned these international destinations. We also have ideas of figuring out ways to support clubs and educate clubs about how to be more inclusive in a way that's not, overly, I don't know what the word would be, but in a way that's authentic to both the game of golf and also how to preserve and to increase your membership or your customers at your golf club.
Yeah, I'd say for me, and if you're super interested, go to the South by Southwest panel picker. We are doing a panel that's up right now for voting with our friends at AA Golf and who are focused on women's fashion, as well as our friends at Hyperscapes Golf who are focused on like what virtual can look like. The game of golf will have to merge. Multiple formats, multiple ways of playing. It's all golf. And how we think about it all as a legitimate expression of the game, I think is really important to that future. And I think for Jon and I, as we are, we both are running businesses now, but as this continues to grow and we're able to dedicate more time to it, do a little fundraising and all the rest of it, really making a concerted effort to be one of the front running communities for, yes, inclusion, but also how do you move the game forward in such a way that regardless of where you are, whether you have access to an 18-hole course, you have access to a simulator, you have access to other forms of being able to play the game, it's all legitimate and it all can be considered one. Because I think golf can take on so many different forms. And again, if we think about inclusivity, people have different body needs. They have different financial needs. They have different psychological needs. And the game can play, I think, a lot of different roles for them. And so how do we help make that a more visible aspect to golf? I'll give an easy example. The fact that most courses don't have handicap enabled resources to allow folks who are playing or need adaptive resources to play the game. That's hard because it makes it, you're traveling long distances just to be able to play it. And most people can't afford to have those tools available to them. But a lot of people, they still want to play the game.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
To piggyback off Matt, I think he identified one. I would love to be the place for adaptive golfers. Adaptive golf 2 years ago at Pinehurst, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was tweeting about it. Everybody was creating content about it. And we were too. And then Matt and I were both expecting that all to pick up again this year when the adaptive tournament was playing in Kansas. Crickets. And there was such good golf. You had a defending champion in Ryan taking on Bailey Bish. The contest, Kip shot the championship record that year. Crickets. So what we really want to do is leverage all of the avenues to have great golfers, great in whatever which way they're great. Great personality, great technique, great skill, great presentation and content. Get together and be able to support one another. And whether it's a bag tag or a towel or a hat, you can see some type of no bunk identification of somebody on the course and know that you're not alone. So one of our early mottos was never feel alone again on the first tee. So I want to eventually be able to, and it's happened already, see somebody who's no bunk in public, make eye contact with them, give them a little black dude head nod, and know that this community, whether I'm consciously and purposely interacting with them or not, is there to support me.
I appreciate it. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time. This has been really insightful for me. Of course, I expected that already based on following up. But Matt, you mentioned the panel in South by Southwest that folks can go in and vote. You want to just, run that by folks again, just so we could get more traction on that?
If you look up the South by Southwest panel picker, you can log in and sign up. You're able to vote on different panels for the South by Southwest conference in March here in Austin. And if you look up No Bunkers, No Bogeys, you will find our panel right there on golf's future. So we're really excited about it, and we'll shoot you a link to include.
All right. And also on your website, there I see the banner there. There is an annual membership opportunity for the first 100 people who sign up, right, for $50. And it comes with a lot of great exclusive membership. So I really appreciate your time. I really like the human-centeredness that you all are approaching, that approach to golf, which for me is super important, and I think, as you mentioned, whenever I get on the golf course, there's a new community there, right? Opportunity to talk to people and stuff like that. So I'm really grateful for that. And I should also mention that I spent a year in Somerville. I lived in Highlands. Yeah. Like when I first came to America, my first taste of what America would be like was in Somerville. Nice. Right? The snow, my first experience with snow is in Somerville. So it was really tough. So I really appreciate you both giving your time and sharing in, and I wish you all best of luck. Any final words from either of you for anyone who's listening?
If you're not sure about playing, give it a try. You're going to love it.
Yeah. And I would say, like we talked about before, get a little uncomfortable. You hear this, get inspired, get a little uncomfortable, do something that is for your best interest, but makes you a little nervous, a little uneasy. Chances are, like the quote says, you're probably doing something great and you're doing something that you need to do.
Nobody who's ever been great at something wasn't bad at it at one point.
There you go.
Amen. Thank you very much. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. Have an amazing evening.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk More Action Golf podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. A big shout out to our producer and creative director, Ajane Josepha, for bringing the show to life. And a special thank you to Sid Mac for our fantastic music. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Follow us on social media for the latest update and exclusive content at Let's Talk More Action Golf. I'm your host, Luke Josepha. Until next time, keep swinging easy, and remember, let's talk more action golf.
Life's a maze, keep your head high when you going through it. I saw dead bodies licking the eyes of the living, held back as you held back from making bigger decisions. We get lost, but this journey comes with us down. That's a given. That's a given. That's a given. We get lost with the journey.
Let's talk more action golf.